Hi, let's look at this question, which can be categorized as a question of exponents or also the question of number properties. Here the question says that a, b and x are integers. So it's very important that we read the information very carefully because it's going to be very instrumental. So we understand that they are integers and a to the power 6. Let me just write this thing down once again, and that is a raised to the power 6 is equal to b raised to the power 3. A raised to the power 6 is equal to b raised to the power 3 is equal to mod of x over x. Now understand one thing, mod of x over x. What happens when you put a modulus on something? So if it's a negative value, then the mod converts it into positive one, and if it's the positive value, then it keeps it positive. But the absolute values of numerator and denominator are going to be the same. So what I mean to say is that the result of this expression is going to be always and always 1 plus 1 or minus 1. But since we have this thing equal to a to the power 6, therefore this thing is always going to be equal to plus 1. Now let me re-emphasize this part once again. Why is it going to be plus 1 or minus 1? If I take x anything positive, let's say 2. So mod of 2 over 2 is equal to plus 1. And if I take x anything negative, for instance, let's take it minus 2. So mod of minus 2 over minus 2 will be equal to minus 1. That's the reason why I said that the result of mod x over x can never be anything other than plus 1 or minus 1, provided it's given that x is non-zero. The question should always mention here that x is non-zero. If it's not mentioned in the question, I think it should be mentioned because 0 upon 0 is something that's not defined. So in context of this question, what we understand is because a to the power 6 and anything to the power even always and always has to be non-negative. That means it is either positive or it is 0. But since this result is not 0, so it has to be positive, positive 1. So what do we understand here is that a can be either plus or minus 1, while b definitely has to be plus 1. Now the question is asking for the value of a minus b. We need to find the unique value of it. Now we can start looking at the first statement. The first statement here says that a raised to the power 3 multiplied by b raised to the power 7 is greater than 0. Which means either a and b are both positive, because see, if you look at their exponents, then they are odd. And when the exponents are odd, then the sign of the number does not change. It remains the same. For example, if a is negative, then a cube will also be negative. And if a is positive, then a cube will also be positive. Now that means we understand that the sign of a cube and b to the power 7 will be same as the sign of a into b. And the product of them is greater than 0. We definitely know that b is definitely positive 1. That means we understand a cube should also be positive 1 only then the product will be greater than 0. And since we know that a is equal to plus 1 and b is also equal to plus 1, therefore a minus b has to be 1 minus 1, that is 0. Therefore we say that the first statement alone is sufficient, which leaves us with only two choices, option A and option D. Now one of these two options has to be the right answers. Now let's look at the second statement. The second statement here says that a plus b is greater than 0. Now there were two possibilities when we looked at the second statement. One possibility was that a was plus 1 and b also was plus 1. Right? We are looking at this result. And the second possibility was a equal to minus 1 while b is equal to plus 1. If you look at this, then a plus b becomes equal to 2, which is greater than 0, so valid. When we look at this, these values, a is minus 1 and b is plus 1, and the sum is equal to 0, which is not greater than 0, so not acceptable. And since the second statement gives us that a plus b is greater than 0, that means this is the condition which is going to prevail here, which means a must be positive 1 as well as b must be positive 1. Now, since we know that a is equal to 1 and b is equal to 1, therefore a minus b has to be 1 minus 1, that is 0. Therefore the second statement also is sufficient, and hence answer to the question should be option D, which says that each statement alone is sufficient to answer the question. So in this question, the most important part was to understand that mod x over x can be only plus 1 or minus 1. But since we have the even exponent, so the result had to be plus 1, which gives us that b definitely had to be plus 1 and a had to be either plus 1 or minus 1. So I would call it a tricky question. Definitely it is tricky. But I hope you enjoyed the explanation. And if you did, then please don't forget to subscribe the channel, because you can access more than 1100 plus videos on the same channel on Quant, and they are sorted in the playlist as per the topics. So I hope you would enjoy them as well. Thank you so much for watching.